Hi, I'm Chris from chrisamericos.com, where we help you level up and show the world the best version of yourself. And in today's video, we're going to talk about the difference between the English verbs study, learn, and know. So what's the difference between study, learn, and know? We're going to talk about it right now. But first, subscribe to this channel so you get more videos like this, and press the bell button to get notified when we go live so you can join our speaking practice lessons. Study, learn, and know are really useful words. You need to know the difference between them and how to use them correctly. A lot of people think that they know the word know, and if you don't know, then at the end of this video, you will know. But why do so many people make mistakes with study and know? They seem like really simple words. Well, there's really a big difference between the meanings of these two words. Study is like practice. When we say that we are studying something, it means that we are practicing it. And yes, we can also learn something at the same time. And that's what's confusing. Know really tells us the result of learning. After you've learned something, you know it. When you've learned some information, we can now say that you have this knowledge, right? So knowledge is the noun that we use from the verb to know, and knowledge means the necessary information, maybe to do something or to speak about something or to do some kind of action. And if I say, I know her, this means that I have some information that's necessary to understand who she is. If there's just a person walking down the street and I don't have any information about them and I can't say who they are, I don't know them. But if I see a famous person who's walking down the street and I have some information about who they are, I can say, oh, I know that person. That's Donald Trump. It doesn't matter if you like the person or you don't like the person, you know who it is. So you can say, I know him. But that can be really confusing because after you say, I know him, someone can ask you, do you know him personally? So really, the verb to know tells us that we have some information up here that helps us understand who this is or what this is. So for example, someone can say, oh, I live in Bangladesh. And I can say, oh, okay, Bangladesh. And they'll say, do you know Bangladesh? And I can say, yeah, I know Bangladesh. It doesn't tell you how well I know Bangladesh, right? Because I've never been to Bangladesh. I don't speak Bangla. I've never been to any of the cities there, so I don't know a lot about Bangladesh. But I do know that it exists, and I know that the word Bangladesh refers to a country that is east of India. So when a person says that they know something, it doesn't exactly tell us that they know everything about it. It usually tells us that the person knows enough about it to talk about it, to give some more information about it. And when we talk about a language, it means that they are fluent or they can speak and use the language. So I would say that I don't know Japanese. If you say, I know Japanese, then it means that you understand all of the information necessary to use Japanese, to use the language. It means if you meet someone who speaks Japanese and you say, I know Japanese, then they will think that you can speak this language, you can communicate in this language because you have all of the information necessary to use it. We don't usually say, I am knowing Japanese because the verb to know is not an action verb. That means that we don't use it in the continuous tense. In any continuous tense. We don't use it in past continuous, we don't use it in present continuous, we don't use it in future continuous, we don't use any form of continuous with non-action verbs. So it's not right to say, I am knowing someone or I am knowing something. Instead, you just say, I know. I know him, I know it, I know this. A phrase that some people say that I absolutely hate, so if we meet, please don't say it to me, is the phrase, I know everything. If a person tells me that they know everything, it makes me feel like this person probably doesn't know a lot. Anybody who learns a lot of things knows that they don't know everything. And I personally believe that the smartest people are the people who know what they don't know. It's much harder to know what you don't know and to say that and to be honest about it than to just know something and tell everybody, I know that, I know that. Now, sometimes people do something, like they do an action, and they don't know that they are also doing something else. Sometimes we just do stuff and we don't know what is happening, or we don't know something about what we are doing. And we have a great adverb that we can use in English. This adverb is unknowingly. So for example, maybe I put $1,000 inside of a book, and my brother took this book and threw it in the garbage. He threw it away, and I can say he unknowingly threw away $1,000. So he did this, but he didn't know that he did this. And that brings us to two adjectives that are really important to know: the word known and the word unknown. If something is known, it means that people know it. But if something is unknown, then people don't know it. So we might say, it is unknown how many stars there are in the universe. I know the answer: a lot. And we can also say this about people. We can say, Chris is known to be one of the best YouTubers. Okay, so now you know what it means to know. And we need to come back to the topic of study and learn. Now, I can't even count on my fingers how many times my students have made mistakes with the words study and learn. Usually, when we talk about this process of learning and studying at the same time, we're talking about the present tense. We're talking about something that's happening right now. And that is when the words study and learn are very, very similar. They're almost the same. Because when you practice something, you also get new information about it. And that is what learn means. Learn is all about getting new information and getting new skills, new abilities, or new knowledge. Yes, the result of learn is know. So after you learn something, you know it. Now let's back up a little bit, because the word learn is part of a lot of different theories about how people get new knowledge and get new information. In psychology, specifically behavioral psychology, we can talk about things like a stimulus and a response. Maybe in school or at university, you learned about a man named Pavlov. And you might have learned about his dog. His dog is actually more famous than him, I think. And what Pavlov did was he measured how much water came out of the dog's mouth when he showed the dog some meat. And that's not learning. That was just something naturally that the dog did. I mean, you do that and I do that. But the next thing that Pavlov did was he introduced a new stimulus. And a stimulus is basically a signal. Instead of just showing the dog the piece of meat, he rang a bell and then showed the dog the piece of meat. Now, in the natural world, dogs don't hear bells all the time. I mean, if a dog is just walking down the street, it's not like somebody just comes up and rings a bell usually. Although maybe on another planet somewhere far away, that happens. I don't know. So dogs do not naturally get excited or hungry when they hear a bell. But Pavlov did this many times. He rang a bell and then he showed the dog the piece of meat. And then he rang the bell and then he showed the dog the piece of meat. And the next day he did the same thing. And then the next day and the next day. And after some time he noticed that water started coming out of the dog's mouth before the dog saw the meat. So he noticed a response, which was water coming out of the mouth of the dog, from a new stimulus. Not from the meat, but from the bell. And this process that Pavlov used is called conditioning, or operant conditioning. But there are other words that we might also use about this process. We might say that Pavlov taught the dog to get hungry or get excited from the sound of the bell. Yeah, Pavlov is a teacher, and he gave the dog new information. And we might say that the dog learned to get hungry or get excited from the sound of a bell. Or maybe we can say that the dog learned that the bell was a signal that meat was coming. The dog learned this. So in behavioral psychology, we can see that learning is connected to a change in behavior. And this change in behavior is because we have some new information, and a lot of times we call this new information a stimulus. Something that stimulates behavior, which we call a response. So we can use this simple process of stimulus response to understand how people and animals learn things. Now, most things in the world are not that simple. You can't just say there's the stimulus and there's the response and that's why this happened. Usually there's a lot of different factors and variables. I think that helps you understand the difference between studying something and learning something. Because when you study, you just practice it. But when you learn, you get new information. Something changes. And when we use these two words in the present tense, they're very similar. So I can say, I am studying Japanese, and I can say, I am learning Japanese, and I can do both of those things at the same time. If I open a grammar book of Japanese, or if I look online and learn some basic vocabulary in Japanese, I can say, I'm studying Japanese because I'm practicing this skill. I'm practicing the Japanese language. But I'm also learning new words, which is new information. And after I learn a word, I know a word. So I'm getting this information and then I understand it. We said that we can study and we can learn at the same time if we're doing it in the present tense. But what about the past? And what about the future? Let's look at another example. If I say, yesterday I studied Japanese, well, this means I practiced Japanese. Maybe I practiced saying some words. Maybe I practiced my pronunciation, right? You know how I like to practice pronunciation? I just stand in the shower and talk to myself and say strange sounds from other languages. So that's what it means if I say that I studied Japanese yesterday. I practiced it yesterday. But if I say that I learned Japanese yesterday, that means something very different. That means that I got this new information and now I know this new information. Now I understand it. But you probably know that it's impossible to learn Japanese in one day. Because if I say, yesterday I learned Japanese, it means that I didn't have this information before. I got this information yesterday, and today I know it. Now I know Japanese. I learned it in one day. So it sounds strange because it's not possible. I remember as a child, when I came home from school every day, my mom would ask me, Chris, what did you learn today? And so really she was asking, what new information did you get? And you know, I was a little kid and I would say, I didn't learn anything, right? So you can ask someone, did you learn this today? And they can tell you, I already knew that. And we're talking in the past tense. If it's not new information, if you already know something now, you're not learning it, you're just studying it, practicing it, repeating it, you're doing something else. You're not learning it. Right? You might say that I need to relearn something. We usually use this verb to relearn when we have forgotten something. So I can tell you from my experience, when I was in high school, I lived in Italy for 2 years and I knew some Italian. I could speak Italian. But now I have forgotten everything. So if I want to speak Italian with you, I have to relearn it. I need to learn Italian. If I tell you that I need to learn Italian, then you know that I do not know Italian right now. Because in order to learn something, first you must not have that information or not know it. And then you get that information, and after that, you know it. That's what learning is. So in the past, we don't usually say that we learned a language yesterday, for example. Or last month I learned Japanese. This month I'm going to learn French. Well, it takes longer than 1 month to learn an entire language. That's probably not true. I didn't learn all of Japanese last month. And Japanese is just the example that I'm using for this video. I've never studied Japanese, so I don't know anything about Japanese. But I would love to learn it sometime in the future. And let's talk about using these two words, study and learn, in the future. Because it's very similar to the past. These two words are different. I can say, tomorrow I'm going to study Japanese. And this means that it's my plan to practice it. But if I say, tomorrow I'm going to learn Japanese, well, that's impossible. I can't learn a language in just one day. So it sounds strange. And you might be thinking, but Chris, you are learning something about Japanese, so isn't that okay? And the answer is, yes, it is. But if you say, I'm going to learn Japanese tomorrow, well, it doesn't tell us that you're learning a little bit. It tells us that you're learning the whole language. So instead, you can say, I'm going to learn some new Japanese words tomorrow. I'm going to learn a new grammar rule in Japanese tomorrow. I can tell you at the beginning of a video, in today's video, we're going to learn the difference between study, learn, and know. At the end of the video, I want you to know it. And after you know it, I want you to practice it with me. I want you to study English with me by speaking with me. And you can do that by going to the live category on our channel and joining us for live lessons. Now I hope you know the difference between study, learn, and know. Make sure you subscribe to this channel and you'll get more videos like this in the future. There's a lot more videos coming very soon. Click that bell button to get notified when new videos come out, or to get notified when we go live so you can practice speaking with us. And leave a comment under this video and let me know something that you are studying right now. I want to know what you are learning about. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.